Hello, it's a real American Brian, and I'm back with Jonny. Look at this. He came back to visit me again. He's on this channel quite a bit, 4 times.
I think I'm a four horseman.
All right.
So not hold on, let's do the numbers for my own ego.
Okay.
Silent auction, Saturday morning cartoons. Oh, good names, bad names. This one.
Oh, look at that. 5.
Five timer club.
Ooh,
Look at
easily,
that. Yeah,
easily the most
smoking
frequent.
jacket and a pipe and everything. I'm in the five timers club.
Yeah. All right, but we are going to be together here today talking about the 300th issue of G.I. Joe and IDW's run and ending of their run with the license. There it is, the Jamie Sullivan cover, the world record breaking cover.
Hold on. I own this.
Dusty?
I own Dusty. I literally own him. I own this. I own it. I have proof that I own it.
Yeah, Jamie Sullivan did his kind of auction thing on Facebook
On
with
the wall.
oh, there he is.
Huh.
Yes, super cool. I loved seeing that cover in person. I mean, we saw it teased for so long before it came out, and
So
actually
great.
having it in your hands is really cool.
I'm contemplating seeing if there's any prints left. I'm undecided if I'm going to submit one issue for slabbing, and I might take the other issue I have of the same cover and flatten it and put it in a frame on my wall in lieu of a print. I don't know. What were you thinking about? Were you going to consider that at all or no?
I believe all the prints are gone.
Oh, well, then I have nothing to consider at this point.
I don't know. You might check. Maybe there is one still floating around someone didn't pay for or something. But I intend to get one copy slabbed, and I'll just be happy being able to flip it back and forth.
The slab will be the other side.
Yeah. Since I don't have the backing board in it because it's slabbed, I'll be able to see both sides, and I'll be content with that.
Have you ever seen anyone slab a backside or no?
I don't know if they will. If you request it, like back facing forward.
I mean, yeah, like yeah, just the back cover is the front.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they would do that for you or not, but
normally it's like an ad for like a CW show. And, it's like I'm gonna
even if you just had it displayed backwards, the back of the label.
That's
really
like
about the grade.
I'm gonna slab an ad for season 4 of Arrow.
All right. Well, you've been on the channel before. If they haven't watched that, though, I believe you started reading with 155 and a half, the IDW era, and going forward. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of, I think the question you're alluding to is the history of the Joe comic with me. And I fully admit I am a toy and cartoon kid. I didn't read a ton of comics as a kid. And when I did, it was Marvel superheroes, not anything else Marvel. And so, and I wasn't really even that. It was more of a by the way, there's a comic, and it wasn't really a thing till I kind of became more of a, 20s, I guess, late teens, we'll say. Yeah, I guess I started hanging out at comic stores when I was like 18, 19. So for me, I did start with 156, right?
155 and a half.
155 and a half, right? And I actually remember this moment. I don't know if you might not remember this, but about maybe 2 years ago, we'll say, maybe a little bit less, I asked you about, I want to get into it. Where should I start? And you were kind of giving me some tips. And you said start with trade 10 or 11. I think it might have been 11 with Death of Snake Eyes in there. So I started that, and you, I think, thought, well, that's a good jumping point. Some cool stories are beginning, and probably easier to acquire those issues, maybe. And I started reading that, and I got about three issues in the first trade, and I was like, no, I gotta go back. So I went and acquired, which getting IDW trade 1 was very difficult.
So that was the different path that we took too. So you actually went through the smaller IDW back to starting with number 1,
yes.
where those issues were collected in the tail end of their classics as well. Like classic
These
16
these
through
were in the
20.
classic still as well.
Yeah. Classic 16 through 20 were actually IDW comics. So that's how I had them. So my collection looks even weirder because I have classics, 1 through, well, not anymore, they're custom bound, but 1 through 20, and then
Humble brag on the custom bound.
and,
Jeez.
and
It's like
then
not anymore. I mean, not anymore. I got custom binding. I picked them up in my Mercedes. Not a big deal, but
no, but then after that classic 20, you jump to like IDW 11 or 12 or something. So your shelf looks weird, where yours
oh,
looks organized.
I didn't realize that. Okay, well, thanks. Yeah, this one was very hard to get. And then 14 and 15 were very hard to get as well.
15 is nuts and pisses me off.
So let's get into it. So you and I talked, and we said we were like, it was almost not an auction per se, but we were like, what's the most we'll pay? And you and I were kind of going back and forth because I'm not against a used copy if it's in good condition, but my experience has been, especially with trades, it's either feels brand new, could be on a somebody's shelf forever, but it either feels brand new or is completely trashed. I'm not going to swear in this episode, by the way. I promise. I was going to say the S word. It's either completely trashed. So if those are my options, I try to find a new copy. I know you've said before. I think you said trades you don't care that much about because they're there for reading, but the issues you would care more. But I knew I'm not going to go and buy all the issues. So to me, the trades are the issues. And I'm trying to get nice. Now, with that said, not number one, but there's a couple, I think around like 16, maybe 17 or 18, where the glue is like just gone. It's like, it's if I'm not careful, the first 6 pages will just slide out. But this one's still perfect. This one I had to pay, I think I paid $50 for it.
Oh wow.
But it was an eBay gift card, so it felt like nothing. And then issue 14 was hard to get too. That was Cobra World Order, the beginning, right? That was at my second local comic store. I have my main one and on my second one. That was on their normal shelf one day, so I got that for $16. That was pretty brand new. 15, however, guy had one on eBay for $200. And I'm like, come on, like, there's no way. And then I watched it, went to 150. I'm like, nah. Watched it, went to 100, watched it. And I think I told you, would you do this at 50? And you were like, maybe. And I said, I think I'm going to do it at 50. And then I went to 50 and I snatched it.
It's funny because I had that same auction. I was watching it the whole time too. I had it in my watch list and I kept watching it get relisted. And there's another guy that's been relisting his, but he's not coming down on his. But yeah, because it's a smaller trade too. There's fewer issues in it. I really think the problem, it was a shorter print run is one thing that made it rare.
Yeah.
But then also, I think there's a lot of people that bought it thinking it was classic volume 15, which would have been the end of the Marvel run.
Oh,
Instead. So I think that like artificially inflated the rareness of it.
really? Okay.
I
Even though
did
it's
find,
pretty obvious it's not, though. I mean,
yeah, you would think, but who knows? I mean, if you're just going with
good point. If you look at, yeah, if you look at Real American Hero and Larry Hama and G.I. Joe, you could easily, because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the classic ones only say classic here.
yeah, they're thicker and they say classic on the spine too. But I mean, but there was somebody in one of the gijoe comic groups that was selling a volume 15 recently, and we had a conversation about it. I was like, listen, the eBay prices are insane. This is why they're insane. And he completely agreed and understood. Like, yeah, that's insane. I was like, this is the offer I'll make on it, and this is what I'm willing to go at. And then I realized that he was from the UK. I was like, oh, I'm not the right guy for you because shipping's going to kill this whole deal. And we kind of agreed to go our separate ways. But it was a nice exchange of like a reasonable person that knew this book was not a $200 book, despite what it's listed on eBay as. Because if you look at sold auctions, it doesn't sell for that.
Right, because that's the real thing. You got to look at sold. And I love that it was like you came to this final agreement and it was like, oh, you are not American. And I'm looking for a real American hero, not a real British hero, a fake Canadian hero. I'm looking for real American Brian. You're trying to stay true to your name and your channel. I love that.
Sure. But yeah, so that's some of the so you talked about Cobra World Order, and then this issue 15 had what was an issue 15? It was the other end of Cobra World Order, right?
Yeah, with the other end of Cobra World Order on there. So yeah, did you want to get into like kind of memorable stories and things like that?
Yep, that's where I was going. Do you have any memorable story arcs or anything?
It's almost like I had your questions via a message to me.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should let you ask the question.
No, that's fine.
This is not our old show we used to do. You get to ask the question. I get it. I get it. Yeah. So on a recent, I have a weird memory. I remember like very specific things from a long time ago, but then also I missed some recent things. So like for me, on a more recent level, I actually really enjoyed Snake Hunt, which was the story that led to the one that led to the end of the run, pretty much. And so even though, you know, there still was the mindset of I don't know how I feel, and I'm going to try not to cover what you and Scott covered, even though I shared some of the same opinions when I watched that episode. But the Sean Collins as Snake Eyes still kind of bothered me because, you know, Throwdown's a pretty badass nickname, and you could have been doing all the ninja stuff in different clothes. And I had hope for something to happen, have, you know, Dawn end up being the actual Snake Eyes, you know, but, you know, Snake Hunts, the search for Snake Eyes was for Throwdown and Sean. So even with that said, I still really loved it because I'm a big sucker for like when a lot of people join in the fun and a lot of characters come in, and bad guys sometimes are good guys. And so anytime we can get away from realistic Middle East stories, which I don't dislike, I just like Cobra Springfield type things more. So I thought Snake Hunt was like, I'm thankful I had the trade, because if I had to wait, it's like, I thought it was very like Page Turner-esque.
It's so interesting that you brought that up too, where like the Middle East stuff, because I'm reading some of the forums online, which is not good for your health sometimes.
That's your first mistake.
Right? But there it's very obvious that there's like two different like big groups of people that what they like in GI Joe. Some of them like the realistic military stuff, and then some of them like the more like comic booky fantasy type stuff. Because like reading through some of their comments, I'm like, oh, I thought this was really cool, and they're like, no, I hate all that crap. You know, I want the Joes, you know, with their guns and fighting. It's like, okay, well, that's cool too, but like, why can't we have a mixture of both? I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like for me, if I kind of have and when I do this 3-tier ranking, they're all, it's like, you know, if it's all pie, it's still pie. I love pie. They're all great. So it's never like I don't dislike something, but for me, it's like Cobra Shenanigans in America 1, GI Joe in the Middle East Feeling Real 2, and actually I put ninja related stories 3. And I know you're probably the opposite with me on that, which is fine, but I still really enjoy them. I just that's my ranking as far as how much enthusiasm I have for like, I gotta see what's next. I gotta see what's next. I still like all three aspects in my Joe and Cobra world, but I just, for me, the Snake Hunt most recently story was a Page Turner. The other one I wanted to bring up was actually, sorry.
Before you go forward, one of the other cool things about Snake Hunt was like all the characters appearing at least once. Like all the Living Joes came into that story at least one time. I think it was a 10-part story, right? I think it was 10 parts.
So it was like it was a big trade.
Yeah, I think it was a 10-part story.
And so I think it was this. So yeah, I mean, I think to your point, we're little crack on the binding here. Got to be careful. Too quick. 266 to 275. So you're exactly right.
So it was really cool. I mean, they announced that as they were soliciting it, like every Joe's going to appear in this somewhere. Like some of them were just kind of like backgrounds in one panel, but it was cool to see like all those rarely seen Joes pop up.
Was this supposed to be like like a not a grand finale because we knew there was going to be more issues after some. Was this supposed to be like the final big? Well, I don't know. Was there like because these 10 issues is a big deal. That's like a massive length of a story.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was planned from the beginning that we're going to do Snake Hunt. It's going to be 10 issues, but I don't think it was planned as like, I mean, that's a big story in G.I. Joe. There's not that many like over big story arcs. So 10
But
issues.
then we got right into things that led us to the ending right after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
see.
it was really cool. And I think once we start getting into issue 300, I mentioned on the Scott video that something that happens in there kind of makes me mad because of Snake Hunt. Like, why did we go through all Snake Hunt? And then, like, did it really matter?
It's yeah, I mean, basically what you're saying is it could have been you know, it could have been any one hunt.
Yeah.
Is that the point? It could have
Yeah,
been.
kind of weird. But what other story arcs are
Okay,
memorable?
the other big one I like is so on my wall here, I bought 2 pieces of Jamie Sullivan's issue 300. And so Darklon up at the top, who I've always enjoyed. The reason why I like Darklon is besides being to me like a more, am I allowed to say dickish? Is that
Sure.
okay? I already did. It's a more dickish Destro. I always liked Destro, especially as a kid. But Darklon came after my toy time as a kid. He was a later 80s guy. And so I knew of him, but I was like, I'm playing sports now. I don't do this, whatever. So, but I knew of him and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And so when I started reading the IDW series, I knew Darklon had some story arcs in the original that I knew about. But the idea of seeing him pop up in which, can I merge a little show and tell?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I picked this one up the other day. Got it for $9.50. Great condition. $9.50. I clarify because someone was selling one for 45 the other day. I'm like, come on, you got it for 45, and they got it for $9.50, and it's like literally both near mint, you know. But I was really enjoying that one there because he is the type of bad guy that I love. It's the I'm here to fund both sides of any war to keep it going longer. That's my thing. And I just love that because to me, that's more that's more evil than anything else. That's, you know, that it's profiteering off the death of both sides, just like his ancestors did, you know.
Well, and it works really well, like him complimenting Destro's character a little bit, because Destro on his own, he's doing the same thing. You know, he's an arms dealer, just, you know, funding whatever side pays him. But he doesn't have anyone that's really going after him because everyone wants to be on his good side. But then if you bring Darklon in, now there's some rivalry there. And
yeah, and it makes Destro look like a good dude as well. You know, because like, hey man, like I may be a jerk, but I do love my girlfriend. You know, I'm just saying I've got some piece of my heart that isn't greed. So seeing Darkline show up because the assumption was he was dead. So that was pretty cool for me, like getting to see a character that isn't really published a lot or, you know, used a lot, and a toy that I wasn't young enough to really like enjoy so much. So I'm like, oh, cool. I like this character, but I don't get to see him too much. And I know he was supposed to be dead. So that was cool. He pops up. And then roped into a story of trying to capture him. And it's Flint, who is one of my favorite Joes, especially as a kid. Loved him. Definitely my favorite as a kid. So Flint and Lady J and I think Roadblock, I believe, was with them in the helicopter to capture him. And so then you have a cool storyline of they get hit, and Lady J and Darkline both get hit. So complete the mission or save your girlfriend. You know, so I like those kind of conflicts. Seeing Joes that I was into, seeing, you know, so that was really cool. And if I remember correctly, they so after they captured Darkline, he actually escaped anyway, and then he got in the Evader, his cool ship, then got away anyway, if I remember correctly. So
yeah, I mean, as bad guys do, right? You have them for a second, next issue, oh, they're gone again.
dude, all I know is take his ship, the Evader. It's called the Evader. Take it to the impound it, impound it into the pit, bring it to the bottom level, make other smaller vehicles out of it. So then, if he escapes, make that dude do it on foot. You know. So anyway, I thought that was cool. he got it. I think it was like the one. What is that? 172. So I think it was like 168-ish to 173 was his kind of time in there, and so I really dug that.
Awesome. So leading up in this last story arc that we had, I guess let's get into it. Let's get into leading up to 300. So this will be your spoiler warning if you haven't read issue 300, but this is coming out far enough. I'm assuming you already have.
Do the thing. You doing the thing?
Well, wherever it is.
It's like, am I on top of it right now? Or is it
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But that last story arc leading up to 300, we're not going to touch 300 yet, but that story arc leading up to it, like, I think we talked about this briefly, but did you have ideas on where you thought it was going to go?
So yeah, first off, I love the casino. I don't care what anybody says. First off, can I just also say I watched your episode with Scott, and he is not a Dr. Mindbender fan. Well, I am. I think I love Mindbender, and so to me, I would love like a buddy comedy, either Mindbender and Cobra Commander, or Destro and Zartan. You know, because I like buddy comedies. I like, and look at them riding. I had to get this issue, even though I didn't have it originally. They're riding around through the casino, having a ball. I mean, our parents could be here having fun,
What about Serpentor Con and Mindbender?
So the Serpentor Con thing is really funny because as much as I loved Serpentor coming back, love that toy, but on my wrong side? No, there it is. The toy, it's somewhere up there. If I can see it, but I love Serpentor. But when they bring back as Genghis Khan only, I have to wonder: was the real Genghis Khan that witty and snarky? You know what I mean? Like he's like, oh, it's like you said you had Snake Eyes under control. He doesn't look under control. Like there's no way Genghis Khan is that much of a not a. He's a prick in battle, but not a prick as a wordsmith. You know what I mean? So, that idea of leading up into it. So I had a lot of like hopes for it, and I think what did I note in there? Yeah, the snarkiness and the. So you talked about this with Scott, and I'm not trying to copy off you because I literally have the same notes and the same idea, but. So what I had thought was I did think that we were going to see, knowing the issue's coming to an end, I'm thinking about a reset. And so in my head, I'm thinking Dawn Moreno is Snake Eyes. She's the future of Snake Eyes. You and I both like the character a lot. Another one to brag about a little bit. Just picked up got this cover, which is really cool. Felix too. So you and I both like the character a lot because it's kind of like getting the best of everything, because you get a really cool badass female character that has a story from when she was young. We got to see how that progressed, and you get to still see someone that can do all those things. Then you still have Snake Eyes memories, so you can have flashback scenes. You can still have her own conflict. I know you mentioned you were hoping she kind of got that sucked out of her, but I disagree. I actually like that conflict.
No, I didn't want it sucked. I thought that's where it was going. I thought that was obvious, and I don't want that to happen because I think there's a lot more to explore with Dawn.
Well, maybe I only half watched your video, whatever.
No, it's not.
I was doing other things. No, but we both like Dawn, and so my thought would be, all right, if we're doing Snake Hunt, it's like, well, he's not dying, or maybe he is, maybe whatever. But I'm like, there's a push to make a storyline around Sean Collins throw down new Snake Eyes, which also stop saying Sean, stop saying throwdown. Right. We went over the names. They remind me of like in that Saving Silver movie where Jack Black's doing, you don't have to go, well, I want to go, you stay in there. It reminded me of like, we went over the mission. Don't say his name anymore. Just don't say it. Because you're calling Dawn. So he just say Snake Eyes, whatever, But anyway, I prefer him to be Throwdown in his own thing, but whatever. So my thought and hope, frankly, was that Sean will die leading up to issue 300. So that way, it's the because you and I, did we discuss on the silent option video the whole, we didn't like that idea anyway, right? The why'd you do it? Why'd you kill off the main character and then replace him immediately?
Yeah, I think we talked about it a lot on that video where it was like the time in between death and replacement was just ridiculous. Like it happening instantly like that. There's no time to mourn.
Listen, as a kid, I'm watching Fresh Prince. We got a new Aunt Viv. I'm watching Roseanne. We got a new Becky. No explanations. It just happened. To me, that's what this was. And we're still going to do the, oh my God, you're fit. When you did that one video, you're like, whoa, whoa, what? You're like, his face. And it's like, he's so ugly that you stutter now? Like, oh my God, that's awful that you're doing that to people. So I thought, let's have a round where we don't talk about someone's bad face. Maybe we'll, but it's literally the same exact stuff. Yeah. And then we have Scarlett having now what I call weird feelings for him, because they're not the normal feelings, they're weird feelings.
And there should be a weird age thing there too, but the time.
Well, don't get me started on that, because but, why isn't Stalker 80 years old right now? Right? Yep. He should be 80. And then you retire, and like you and Scott said, you retire or die, and you let Bomb Strike take over. That's just how it goes. But so yeah. So anyway, sorry, I didn't touch it. So I expected Sean to die to allow us to get to 300 with. Sorry, did I say Dawn? I mean Sean to die, leaving Dawn to become the new Snake Eyes. So when it would continue, that would be the reset of, we have our Snake Eyes and it's done. Does that make sense? You know?
Yeah, I think you and I had similar, like I also thought they were going to get to this reset point. So that way, if Larry didn't write it, someone else, they had the same roster and everything to work with that Larry did. But I thought the reset point was going to be Sean and Dawn get in the brainwave scanner and the memories are pulled out of Dawn, put into Sean. Now we have full Snake Eyes again for the reset.
Yeah, good point.
I didn't want that to happen, but I thought that's where it was going. I don't know if I would have preferred that over what actually happened or not. Either way, it's not my preference, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. You know, it's just, I just don't understand why you didn't make Sean Collins different than Snake Eyes somehow.
Oh, another thing to mention too, like when Dawn was introduced with Snake Eyes memories, Larry had done an interview where he's like, this is a new chance for me to like tell Snake Eyes stories, but now he has a voice so he can like talk about these things. And I was like, oh, that's super interesting and unique. There is that extra story element there. And then we get to the end of issue 300 and potentially now Dawn may not matter for that special thing anymore.
I don't think he's going to be normal. I don't think. I just.
Well, I mean, unless it somehow locked into his memories for him not physically, he should be able to, from the time that they took his DNA was before the accident.
So his face is normal and he can speak, but doesn't mean he will speak.
No, I mean, even before his accident, he didn't speak for much. Like he was still a very quiet, like enclosed person.
Back in Vietnam and stuff.
Yeah.
So right, it was almost he's the quiet one and Tommy's doing the talking for him. Right. You know. Yeah. It's just weird. So I don't know what to think. I know you and Scott talked about the possibility of a Cobra Snake Eyes. Whatever. I don't know. I mean, are we talking about merging into 300 now, right?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So, one of the other things I want to mention before we get into that, though, something that's not recognized enough, I don't think, is, at least as far as I'm concerned, Larry Hama's like run on this book. Like, so we got to issue 300. If we look at just the main title of the 300 issues, he wrote 292 of them. But wow. I spent some time doing like Google searches on like long runs of writers and artists on books, and he's never mentioned in any of these articles, blog articles, on articles from different, and I don't understand why. So then I was like, well, maybe it was, there was a 16-year gap in the middle of the book. So maybe that's it. But even then, if you go from 156 to 300, that's still a longer run than most of the guys that get mentioned for having long runs on comics. Like, it's just nuts. And that's not including, the special missions, the yearbooks, and silent option, and all the other stuff that go in the same universe that he also wrote. Like, it's unreal how much he's contributed to this.
You just mean, I mean, at its face value, is this just that's a licensed property? It gets no respect.
I really think it is. And he talked about that, when he initially took on the book, that, that was kind of something that you didn't do because you would never get a big book after that. And you would just be a toy comic guy. And it kind of seems like that came true for him, sadly. Like he had some runs on Wolverine, but that was like his biggest book that he got to work on, I think, or most well-known book. I mean, he did some other stuff. And then
Yeah, I
like,
never mind that Wolverine one, by the way, because I think Wolverine fights Deadpool in that one, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong.
yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, and I thought that was cool, but yeah, it's kind of a massive. Would you say though, to be fair, that now is he getting his due?
Um, Not as much as I think he should have, because I mean, I think we could look back a couple years when Spawn 300 was coming out. So Spawn 301 was a Guinness record breaking thing. It was a creator owned run of 301 comics that Todd worked on. So it's a little bit different, but it's somewhat comparable in that it's that 300 issue mark.
Yeah.
And Todd got a ton of attention during that time for that, which again, his was a world record. He went from 1 to 301. So there's definitely, but there is some similarities there. And I don't think Larry's
And I'm not, yeah, and I'm not sticking up for the why he got the praise, but I mean, I remember as a kid, not to get too off track here, but I remember as a kid when Spawn came out, it was like mind blowing because it was Marvel and DC, and it was like, what is this? And so, because what was it, like 92? I think it started.
I believe so. Yeah, 92.
Yeah, and I had like the first. I didn't have one, but well, I mean, I had it. I don't know where it is now, but I had some of the early ones, and you know, I get it. Brand new property, totally different. But yeah, he's pretty. It's almost. I think Tom McFarlane also gets a lot of just good guy points because of from the action figures and all kinds of different lines that he kind of revolutionized action figures too. So I think he gets not credit. What's the word I'm looking for? He gets like extra praise because of the reasons why it makes him a cool guy. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not trying to compare the two of them. I don't understand why Larry's not mentioned in those conversations with the other guys that had long runs, like the John Byrne run or Stan Lee and his run on Fantastic Four. Like, why isn't Larry in that conversation too? Like, I
I
looked
have,
around, I never find him included.
I have to imagine it's really a sabotage before it even starts. It's the comic about the toys.
Well, I think a big part of it too is that so many people still don't realize, like casual people don't realize that IDW picked up where that Marvel left, and it's still the same book. Like, there's a lot of people who don't realize that yet, which is sad. But I just want to mention that before we get into 300.
Well, is that because he might be watching or
No, I don't think he's watching.
what?
I mean, if he is, that's awesome, but I really don't think he is. He has
Well,
better things to do.
okay, yeah, maybe. Hey, your show's getting first time I was on, there was like three followers, three subscribers, and now you've got like well over 100. You've got a video with over 1,000. So you've come a long way.
Yeah,
Just saying.
we're getting there. But let's get into issue 300.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll take this one.
So we started talk. What were we talking about before I sidetracked us there?
You were talking about, well, we did lead into the actual issue, and I said, I expected Sean to die. I expected, I'll get into my thoughts here. So I've got some notes here. I expected Wade to die. I thought that was obvious.
It seemed obvious, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, someone's got to die, and it should be old people. That's just how it goes, I did expect Laura 343 to sacrifice herself for the greater good. You and I are both a big fan of her, I think, as well. But lot to be said there. So she's getting a little into Snake Eyes as well. Who isn't? He's obviously dreamy,
So my hope for the future of that character, now that she's left Cobra, is that she doesn't become a Joe, but she becomes like Joe adjacent. So she's always around, and she helps the Joe sometimes, and maybe she has a thing with Sean going on, but she's never officially a Joe.
That would be good to give her a little more little more substance to her character besides the old "I was bad, now I'm good."
Right. So that's my hope for her. But
Yeah, I think the other thing too is so I picked up 300, obviously when the day came out, and so did you, and I read it. I didn't want to talk to you about it before you read it. It was maybe a couple hours in between, and you and I both said there were people online, crapping on it, and you and I, after we read it, we're both like, yeah, it was okay, it was pretty good. But then, did your opinion change at all from right after you read it until now? Like, do you like it more or less?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't dislike it. I liked it. I had fun reading it. I just had my own hopes and dreams for it, but I'm not in control. I'm watching this happen, so I have to put that aside. But I don't think my opinions changed too much. Is yours?
Yeah, it went down a little bit.
Did it?
Yeah. I think because it's weird because if you're excited about something and then you are just a little disappointed, that should be your lowest point then. And then the opposite should occur. You should slowly realize, oh, I got into it. I kind of a little bit the opposite. I read it and then it got to we're going down, to be continued. Okay. And then I got here's how to make a tourniquet. And so it's which, you and Scott were ripping on it. I learned some things. I like to listen, I'm already, I'm not trained, I'm not an EMT, but I'd like to think that when stuff goes down, I have some use. So I thought that was interesting, but it was a little bit of drink your Ovaltine, Ralphie.
Yeah, I don't think it, I guess the one thing that leaves me a little, I'm not disappointed. I don't want to say that, but there is some disappointment there. And one of those things is that I don't feel like it delivered on anything that we were promised. Like, I feel like I was promised like an ending, but an open ending. And what I got was a whole collection of cliffhangers. Like,
Agreed.
there's no ending there.
You're supposed to, and this is why I'm going to say, I'm going to say I was, semi disappointed, because it's still, I enjoyed the storyline up until that point and still do. So I'm not mad or disappointed, but I would say semi disappointed because it should feel like I'm closing a chapter, but it allows it to be opened, which means if you said, I am done with G.I. Joe, I'm moving on to other things, I'm not going to continue wherever it may be, you should feel closure with that. But you should also feel you could be open and try the next one. This is very much nothing was closed, nothing was solved, nothing was decided, no one died.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, if you really wanted to break it down and be extra cynical, you could say none of the story really mattered. All it did is introduce Serpentor Khan and another Snake Eyes. Like, there was no nothing. We didn't lose anything. We didn't lose anybody. Even a character like Wade Collins, who would have been, I think, the perfect character to die. And it looked like it was going that way. And
hey, you know what? Maybe call me negative, but I'm thinking father-son death as well.
Well, I actually thought that would make Sean's character a little more interesting. Like, if he had that brief father-son moment and then he passes away. Like, now there's an extra dramatic element there of Sean's character.
I was thinking maybe Wade would die after he looked at Sean's face.
Oh my, Sean, my baby boy.
Son, let me look upon you. Oh my God. And then you would have to talk about it in your episode, like, whoa, 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 what? Is that your face? And then everybody vomits and dies, so.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. So I know, are you looking to lead into the post 300 stuff now?
Not yet. I want to talk about the actual construction of the book too. Okay. One of the things that I can definitely say I was disappointed in, and this wasn't promised to me, but I had hoped, was that this would be like a celebration of G.I. Joe. So it's going to be an oversized issue. So I was hoping for a bunch of extra pages, which we did get 10 extra pages. So it went from 20 pages to 30 pages in this of actual story.
That doesn't mean celebration, though. That doesn't.
No, and when I say celebration too, I was hoping for like an interview from Larry or SL Gallant or somebody. And then I was really hoping for like an expanded letters page, because we didn't have letters pages in the whole run up to this. I thought it'd be really nice if they were saving all the stuff and just did like 4 pages of letters, everyone
That'd be
happy
great.
celebrating it, which we finally did get a letters page. So that was nice, but it wasn't what I had imagined, I guess. So I didn't need the cover gallery. I didn't need the stop the bleed thing. And one of the things too, I don't think I mentioned this with Scott, I thought the stop the bleed thing was so weird because it, unlike the stuff in Saturday morning cartoons, the PSAs, like this one didn't have any like tongue in cheek, like we're joking around. This was all serious. And I was like, I was waiting for the goof, and I was like, man, this is like multiple pages where, on Saturday morning it was one
I think
page.
it's because they knew it was a cliffhanger. People be mad that somebody would cut themselves on purpose.
I don't
And
think
that
so.
was like
No, I don't think that's what they were
with the actual issue. How cool would that be?
thinking.
You know?
But as far as the actual construction of what was delivered, did you have any thoughts on that?
You know, I like seeing a lot of Joes, but it was not a celebration of that. I didn't have that expectation. To me, the last time there was a Joe celebration of sorts, and this sounds very morbid and weird, would have been Snake Eye's funeral. That felt to me like, in a way, a Joe celebration, because it was a moment of coming together and
Yeah.
seriousness and all that. But I wasn't looking for that celebration. I was just looking for closure on some cool stories that were happening. I didn't get it.
And I've seen a lot of people, which I don't care. I don't think it's a hobby where you should really nickel and dime yourself. But I've seen a lot of people complain over the $7 cover price and not getting a double-sized issue out of it. Which, we were never promised double size, but we did get 10 extra pages of story.
I don't care about those complaints because real fans bought more than one. So,
yeah, they got me.
So, and I will say, I bought 4 issues, 4 of them, and I forgot I pre-ordered the full Joe one from Things from Another World because I thought my comic store wasn't going to get it. Meanwhile, they had a bunch, and it was too late to cancel that one. So I actually have 5, but I did skip the one under the counter, which was the one with Hawk and a bunch of faces on it. I didn't like the look of that one at all. It's a bunch of random heads floating around. And if my store wants to charge $20 for it, someone else could have it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that kind of wraps up our issue 300, right?
Yeah.
What did you think of, well, before we go too far, Snake Eyes coming back? Like, I think we mentioned with Scott a little bit that I thought it would be cool if there was a Cobra Snake Eyes. I think there's a lot that could have been, if he was actually working with Cobra for 12 issues, let's say. I think that could be really interesting. The Joes having conflict of, fighting their friend, and you'd have a cool dynamic too of like Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes having flipped roles for a little while.
So here's my thought on that. And this kind of, leads into a little like post 300 stuff, but it's I'd be fine if it was a Cobra Snake Eyes. I just want something to flip the script. That's all I'm looking for right now. So with that said, Cobra Commander is helping the Joes at the end of 300. Right? He didn't screw him over it or anything. He's
it's not super clear if he's helping or he's a prisoner, but he's with the Joes.
So the idea would be you can get crazy. Now, people that are going to be like purists are going to be like, oh, don't go this route. But it's like, why do we want the same old stuff? We're already getting a lot of the same old stuff. Like you said, your episode with Scott, the tropes and everything, and how much. Why don't we just blow up the brainwave scanner? I was thinking about Dr. Evil. This guy's like, just kill them. They're right there. Just kill them. Right. Scott, you just don't get it. We have to walk away and like. So there's a lot of Austin Powers-esque kind of like that goes on. So with that said, instead of doing all that again, let's use this as an opportunity. So here's what I'm thinking. You take Cobra Commander helping the Joes. Why is he helping the Joes? It's a chance to revisit the pyramid scheme. He's going to go back to the playbook, become a shady businessman, and maybe they're selling Joe Colas, and they do these Joe Cola parties or Yo Joe, where you're convincing people, and almost Cobra Commander's evil mentality is and the greed aspect is getting into the brains of many of the Joes. So that could be happening. Then on the other side, Snake Eyes comes back working with, say, Mindbender, because Mindbender convinces him, I helped you get out. I preserved you. I got you here. We're going to try to take out Serpentor Khan together. Trust me, I'm not evil. Look, we're fighting the bad guy together, right? Snake Eyes like, maybe he says, I don't know. Maybe he just shakes his head. We don't know yet. So now Snake Eyes and Mindbender are working together. And so they're getting Cobras on their side to help take out Serpentor Khan. So you take the two groups, the Cobra Commander infiltrated Joe team and the Snake Eyes infiltrated Cobra team working together to take out Serpentor Khan. And then after he's gone, everybody realizes what side we're supposed to be on, and we go back to our sides.
So, like looking past 300, I think there is a lot, like you mentioned right there, like you had all these opportunities for cool, different stories, because that's one of the problems with the book, I think. I don't know, the last several years is it's regurgitating the same story in different ways.
Right.
Where we have an opportunity right now to tell a lot of different things. One of the things I think is really exciting, and I hope goes forward, I don't have a lot of faith that it's going to happen, but I hope, is that you have splintered cells of bad guys. So right now you could have Serpentor Khan leading a force, you could have Cobra Commander leading a force, you could have Destro, and you could have Blue Ninjas, all have their own forces all over the globe that the Joes have to, maybe they're separated and they're spread too thin, and now the bad guys are starting to take over or something. There's a lot of cool things that could be happening in there.
Well, and it's actually easy to do that because talk about a time-tested trope of this comic and everything with G.I. Joe is everybody in Cobra, all the top guys will say, are always trying to undermine Cobra Commander. So it's actually easy to do. You could literally have all the big players, from Destro to Zartan and Firefly and Major Blood, and we'll say, and Baroness, and they could actually be, having their own things going on. And so are they working together? Do they not? The Joes don't know that. There's a lot of opportunity to do stuff like that. It also allows you to give something you and Scott talked about, which I don't mean to keep, but he was first, I wasn't. But the idea of like blue cyborg ninjas and whatever, it's like, okay, so we don't care about them and they're expendable because you can kill as many as you want and there's no remorse. Okay, but if you allow other leaders of Cobra to create their own gangs of sorts of bad guys, now you can have real storylines in there. You can have Laura 343s pop up where you're bad, but you have a soul too, and you have a conscience too, and you have conflicts too. We don't normally get that when we're fighting bats and blue ninjas.
Yeah, and if you have multiple forces too, another thing that can develop is there could be times where one of those forces, or the Joes, have to work with one of those against one of the other ones.
Yeah, correct.
Just out of necessity. So then you have that cool thing of the good guys are working with one of the bad guys to fight other bad guys. Like, who is the enemy?
Yeah, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Right.
It's we do have to do those things, and so I would love a first new issue to have Cobra Commander somehow helping the Joes, but like I said, he puts an addictive chemical inside the Yojo Cola that makes them want to become in his pyramid scheme. Like there has to be a Cobra Commander thing you slide in, but I would love to see him help to get out of this jam.
Well, wherever it goes, I think what's best for the book is for Cobra Commander to not be in charge of Cobra for a little bit, right? Like have him separated from Cobra so other things can happen there. But one of the reasons I don't have any faith that's going to happen is kind of like what we saw with whatever we're going to call him, clone Snake Eyes. When he came out, he was under Cobra Command for 2 panels and then instantly he snapped out of it. So I think
more like clown Snake Eyes.
Yeah, and that's just like one of Larry's things where he's always writing himself out of stuff that he put himself into, but he does it so quickly. Like, no, let it simmer, let us enjoy this a little bit. And
good point. He has a very I mean, I know we all know the whole thing about that. I don't know what's on, page 2 until I get there. We all know that whole thing, but there is something to be said for letting things marinate a little bit. Let Snake Eyes stay dead for, oh, I don't know, 100 issues maybe. You know,
I
he
don't know.
could have.
That might be too long, but
I don't. Is
a
it though?
while.
No,
Yes.
hold on. Is it? You're not writing comics to sell toys anymore. So why do you have to please Snake Eye fans?
Yeah.
Snake Eye fans. Because then when he does come back, yeah. And with that said, maybe you could have, okay. So Snake Eyes dies in whatever that was, issue 200, whatever.
14, I think.
14. You nerd. Of course you knew it.
I'm not positive. I know it's around there.
Yeah, not back tread on the nerd cred. You got it. You got the membership card. Okay, what else do you want? Let Snake Eyes die. Let Dawn, do her thing. And I'm not saying like a Snake Eyes be without one, but let Dawn fully, kind of embrace that or have her embrace that role. And but that was the immediate. We got a new Aunt Viv here. It just brought in. It's like, man, come on. And Scarlet, honestly, I was always a big Scarlet fan as a kid, and I'm not super happy with her character in the last, I don't know how many issues, because for someone who is a leader of the Joe team, regardless of rank and all that, she is that person. Everything always ends up with who her emotional feelings with Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
Even Dawn, right? Then wasn't that a thing for an issue?
Very briefly, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so.
Hey, listen, I'm not opposed to, I'm saying.
It is so sad though, because Scarlet could be a really cool character, but so often she's an accessory to the story, like accessory.
She, to me, in a perfect world, she's at Stalker level.
She should be, yeah.
Perfect world. And on that note, you and Scott talked about the dying off. At this point, because something that kind of annoys me a little bit is I'm into timelines of things, and it always affects me, taking me out of something, and suspense of disbelief. Am I saying that right? So why don't you start the new run with Stalker could die, Duke could die, Scarlet can retire. You can have these things happen. The people that are still alive, these legendary Joes, can now move into a consulting role like Joe Colton and Jane, and still be a part of stories, an accessory, a true accessory, but to an accessory of the story and not an accessory to a character. And then let the new ones, the good new ones, not all the new ones, the good new ones take over. Wouldn't that be a cool intro to a new series?
Yeah, I really think so. I mean, you wouldn't call it this, but it would be like the new class, a new whatever you want to call it, the next generation, or whatever. But yeah, I definitely think that, and I wouldn't do it all as one big wave either. It would be like, this character, now all these new characters, just to introduce this new.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not saying I want funerals for everybody either. But or retirement parties every episode, and we're sending them off. But I wouldn't mind from issue 300 to, if it's called 301 or if it's called 1, whatever, I wouldn't mind a time lapse of sorts, maybe a 5-year time lapse.
Well, it's harder to do it when 300 ended on all those cliffhangers, though.
Oh, good point.
It's harder to pull off a time, unless you do like 301 wraps up the cliffhangers and then have a time lapse.
Or, sounds cop out, but like time lapse happens and everything's a flashback for the next couple issues. Yeah. Remember that time we thought we were going down? R.I.P. Wild Bill. Was it Wild Bill and Duke, right? Was that?
Yeah. Okay. Remember that time Clone Snake Eyes came out? We'd all just trusted him right away. Like.
And then Clone Snake Eyes, he didn't age. He's still like 30, and he's just like, and then because they didn't talk, and it's like he writes a piece of paper. He goes, "I can talk. I just don't want to talk to you people." Whoa.
So I guess since we've started talking about 301 and going forward, do you have any hopes for the new publisher and what they might do with the book?
So yeah, so I kind of touched on it. I'd like to see, you know, the old guard go away and the new ones come in. I am a fan of Dawn and Helix and Bomb Strike. And not that Bomb Strike's brand new, but you know, 15 years, 10 years maybe. I don't know.
Newish, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, I guess.
Yeah, a big fan of her. I really like that she got, you know, I don't know, whatever it was, maybe 30 issues ago. She got like a pretty cool story for a while. She led a mission too, right? She led this. Did she lead the silent option mission?
Yeah, silent option. Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. And I'm not just picking the new female characters by any means. I'm just from a, you know, character standpoint, I would like to see the old regulars go away somehow and the old unused come back and the new take over. That would be my hope.
Okay. I have a idea that I've just come up with in the last few days that I think would be really cool.
Okay.
So we know that Larry is writing 301, 302. He's already done those two at least and continuing to write them. And someone, I forget who it was, there was a leak or something, not a leak. There's some information coming out that the new publisher is also going to run a second title. It's going to be like their own thing. Which makes sense. You know, I think Devil's Due and IDW did it where they had the IDW continuity along with the Real American Hero. My idea is to have Larry writing the Real American Hero story 301 going forward with the same cast that he always uses that he likes. And then we still have like 200 plus Joes that don't really ever get any story time. Have somebody else write a different group of Joes from that same thing. It could be in the same Real American Hero universe, just using different Joes. So these Joes are in this book, these Joes are in this book. Let's do this. And we have two different forces going forward.
Yeah, that's not bad. And that also is a good way. Now, people are still going to do the whole, well, this one's the real one. But
yeah, but if their complaint is like a very common complaint is, well, we never see any of these other not often used Joes. Well, now we have a second book where they'll be over there.
Like, you know, we are going to see Footloose and Skidmark. You know what I mean?
Maybe not them.
We are going to see Robo Joe. You know what I mean?
No, definitely not. Oh, something else.
Wait. Oh. Issue 1. Any truth to the rumor that the fridge comes back?
I really don't think so.
Oh, issue 72. You saved that one for 72. Yes. That's the key.
So one of the things that I totally forgot to mention when we're talking about issue 300, it's so easy, like it almost gets glazed over amongst all the other things, is this zombie bomb that we have now that was like introduced, but it wasn't set off. I saw someone online mention that maybe there's a connection, maybe that was intentional because the rumored new publisher of the book is Skybound. So Robert Kirkman, Walking Dead, and now we have a zombie bomb. Maybe that was like an intentional little like Easter egg. I don't know about that, but I do think it's
off the course. You mean?
No, just like linking like, oh, there's zombies coming because we're going to go to Skybound where zombies come from.
But do you mean actually happen or not
happen? Either way, just having like a zombie element in a G.I. Joe story is kind of like wink, wink. We're going to the zombie guys.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Studio. I don't know if that's the case or not, but and does the zombie bomb lead us to like Toxo Vipers and during that whole era of the G.I. Joe toy? Who knows? But I just felt like the whole zombie bomb was like pushed to the side and not really like, no, that's like huge. That could change the whole world.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, how about this? We get a cover with, you know, it's Duke's face zombified, right? That's the cover.
And then everyone's screaming, "Oh, your face!"
Yeah. No, Snake Eyes screams, "Your face!" Ha ha. No. So, cover of the first issue, Duke is zombified, and it's virgin cover. That's the only one that will come out, right? Just that. You flip it over, it says Z.I. Joe for zombies.
Oh yes, that would be something for sure.
Yeah. But anyone watching already stopped watching now, so whatever.
Oh, for sure.
No one actually heard that horrible joke, but having me on 5 times. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for being on. And that's us.
You've been watching a Real American Brian production in association with the letters G, I, and JOE.